Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. I'm your host, Kiera Dent, and I have this crazy idea that maybe I could combine a doctor and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, regional manager, practice owner, and I have a team of traveling consultants where we have traveled to over 165 different offices coaching teams. Yep, we don't just understand you, we are you. Our mission is to positively impact the world of dental, and I believe that this podcast is the greatest way I can help elevate teams, grow VIP experiences, reduce stress, and create A-teams. Welcome to the Dental Team Podcast. Hello, Dental Team listeners. This is Kiera, and you guys, I hope today is an awesome day. It's an incredible day for me because I have our one and only Dana on the podcast today. If you have yet to meet Dana, you need to go check her out. Fridays, Donuts with Dana. She is a consultant on our team that I think is honestly one of the most sweet, genuine, and has some of the best ideas I've ever heard. So Dana, welcome to the podcast today. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. Dana, you have 4 kids, is this right?
Yes.
Yeah.
4.
And they're the cutest little rodeo people I've ever seen in my entire life. I just feel like everybody needs to know that you have the cutest little cowboys and your youngest just turned 1. Is that right?
He did. Yes.
How
the big birthday.
How you feeling with that, Mama? Is he your last one, or are you kind of like, maybe I want another one?
Oh, no, he's the last one. That's for sure all I can manage. But I'm feeling good, right? Like, I'm excited for him to hit milestones and to be one, but also sad that he's getting big, you know.
Yeah, for sure. But that's okay. 'Tis the season, right?
Yep. It sure is.
I love it. Well, guys, that's just a little insight to Dana's life. She's an incredible, I wanted you guys to realize, like, she's an incredible mama. She's got 4 kids. They're the cutest little kids. They were all dressed up in cowboy hats the other day. Sweetest picture. And you just crush it with our clients. So, Dana, I wanted to pick your brain because I think this is a pretty popular topic that happens in offices often. And that is they've got this great team member or an open position and they want to promote from within. But oftentimes there can be some like rocky waters, turbulent times, going from a coworker to a leader. So I kind of want to just let's just riff on this today of how do you actually promote within a practice successfully from your angle. And we'll just kind of riff on it today. So right off the bat, some first topics that you've got, like we said, you either have this rock star that you want to promote and make amazing, or you have an open position in your practice and you're like, well, this person seems like a good fit. Let's promote them to that position. So what are some of your thoughts that you have surrounding that hot topic that we've got?
Sure. And while you pointed out how it can be difficult, I also think too, there is some benefits, right, to promoting from within. And it is, they're already loyal to the company. They're part of the team culture already. They kind of have all of those things in place. So I think it can be positive as long as you go about it the right way. And so I'd really say if we're going to promote somebody within, really be committed to success, and expect bumps along the way, right? We will have some of these bumps, but I think laying out a plan for development for that person, for rolling it out to the team, and just constant and regular meetings to touch base and discuss how things are going.
Okay, that was so many valuable pieces tapped into one. I really love that you pointed out that sometimes promoting from within really can be great because these people are usually diehard loyal. I'll use Shelby as an example. Shelby, I hired her. She's my next door neighbor. And I'm like, I need someone to book my travel and confirm my clients for me yesterday. And now she runs all of our operations. She helps grow it within the company. And she just does amazing. And she came to me because we were hiring an operations person. And she said, what if it was me? And I thought, well, that's a great question. What if it was you? So I think also team members, don't be afraid to let your leaders, your dentists know that you do want to grow. I actually think so many times people get frustrated and upset, not because they were overlooked, but just because the doctor didn't even know that that was something they were interested in. So I think huge points on that to really look for. But then you talked about, so let's just use an example. Let's say I'll use me. I'll use me. I was a dental assistant and super great dental assistant being promoted into office manager. I've got the clinical experience. A lot of hygienists I see being promoted into office managers, or even TCs being promoted into office managers. That tends to be where I see most of it. Sometimes I see clinical team members wanting to go up front. I've seen some hygienists not wanting to, like their hands are starting to hurt, so they want to move more to front office. So let's just do the example of like a dental assistant moving to an office manager. That's what the person who's emailing in, that's their position that they want to go. So Dana, if you were doing this, what would you do first to make sure that this person was set up for success?
I think first it's really outlining clear expectations. Like, what do you expect of an office manager? What are the tasks that they'll be responsible for, as well as kind of laying out like the decision making path, because it's just laying out a plan for them to develop from an assistant into an office manager. Not everybody is born a good manager or a supervisor, so it's fine tuning those skills. But I think setting the expectations of what you're truly looking for in an office manager.
I agree. And I can already hear some people saying, but Dana, what if I don't even know what an office manager should do? Because honestly, sometimes we hire a position because we know we have a need, but I'm like, I don't even know what they're supposed to do. Do you have any tips or ideas of like what people could do if they've never even hired this position to be sure that those expectations are clear?
Yeah, I would say one, right, create kind of like your avatar as far as like what you're looking for in skills, and then reach out, like find resources, like look for daily, weekly, monthly checklists, look for office manager onboarding. I know we have great resources when it comes to those types of things. And oftentimes, right, we'll share them to the community for free. And so I think it's looking for those things and creating checklists. And two, if it's a dentist that's looking for an office manager, what are some things that you're looking to take off of your plate?
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I think that that's just something where so often I don't think we actually get scrappy and look at the resources around us. We have a newsletter that we send out for free that has a ton of this information in there. The podcast, go to our website, thedentalyteam.com, and search office manager or treatment coordinator or scheduler or personal assistant. Email us, hello@thedentalyteam.com. Utilize our online resources. But don't say just because you've never hired this position that there aren't resources out there to help you. We are in a day and age of information and technology and resources that can really help. I also think to that point, Dana, it's super important for offices though, when you're doing this and you're promoting, to be honest and upfront that you've never had this position and it will probably shift and change. I say that all the time. Dana, we hired you on first virtual consultant, and I literally said this, I have no clue how this is going to work out. This is what I'm currently thinking of. So even though I didn't have it perfectly mapped out, there were still expectations, things I knew I wanted in this position, so that way it could be a little more clear. And I think that that's paramount to have that constant trust. So we have our expectations laid out. We've reached out. We've gotten scrappy. We've figured it out. Guys, Google. Honestly, I Google, I'm looking, I'm like, do I need to hire a COO? Do I need to hire a business strategist? Like, I don't know. I Google these job descriptions and make them up. Sissy's our marketer, literally marketing agendas straight from Google. And I give them to her and say, I don't even know if this makes sense, but I found it on Google. Tell me if this is even in a line. Like, I have no clue what her job should even be. But yeah, I'm not going to take that as an out to not guide her, direct her, and be able to support her. So we've got expectations clear. I also think, like you said, especially in the example of an office manager, you made a really good point that I want to dive into a little more of the path of authority and being able to make decisions. What did you mean by that? Because I think this is actually a huge piece that people make as a big mistake when they promote people within, is this the authority and the decision making power. So kind of dive into that a bit more of what you mean by mapping that out for offices. How many of you would just love to DIY and get the secrets of people who have been there, done that on your own time? Because I know for me, I love to learn from the best of the best, the people who have been there, done that, and can give me the shortcuts. That's why we have created our Dental A Team Virtual Academy, where it's on-demand courses for you at your fingertips, where you literally can learn the secrets from all of my experience, all of Tiffany's experience, Brittany, Dana, our entire team's experience at your fingertips. So stop taking the hard route, guys. There's a shortcut sitting there waiting for you, and it's also CE. Head on over to thedentalyteam.com and click on our virtual academy. Be sure to use coupon code podcast and get started on that DIY and become the practice of your dreams.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people get, promoted and they get into new positions, often one of the things that isn't talked about is when they can make decisions on things. So, for instance, office managers, right? What decisions can they make as far as, let's say, hiring or terminating employment or budget things like expenses, things like that? Like, really outlining so that they have the confidence to make those decisions when it's warranted and also know when it's something that they need to run by the doctor or whoever is above them. I think it's just something that doesn't get talked about often when we promote. And I think it's really, really important because we want our managers and leaders to make decisions with confidence.
For sure. And when you don't have that backing by your doctor, it gets really sloshy. And doctors, you're not going to actually free yourself up if you have people who can't make decisions without you. I am highly guilty of this. And I started noticing Shelby, Sissy, Dana, Tiffany, Brittany. Like, I had 5 children. They're not really children, but I felt like I had 5 people asking me for approval. And I realized, holy cow, I have not given people decision making authority. So it's all coming back on me. And I need to empower them to make decisions. One, for my sanity, so I actually can have a life that's not like answering questions all day long. But 2, that way they feel empowered to be able to make these decisions. And I always say, give them clear boundaries and guidelines and then move on from there. So that way they can like get out of their way. Let them make the decisions. They will make mistakes. But if you've trained them, guided them, they can come to you for a while. So it's, for the example of the budget, if you tell them this is what the supply budget is, or teach them, I'd prefer you to teach them that we prefer 4 to 5% of our total collections from last month as our supply budget. So you're teaching them. Let them have free reign. They will make mistakes. They will overorder. They will underorder. But that's a learning process. And if you've given them those clear guidelines and you check in with them consistently, they're going to flourish a lot more than if they're constantly having to come to you, ask for approval, have you sign off on it, have you give them the okay. You might, like, you just have a puppet at that point, not somebody who can actually manage, guide, lead, and truly be promoted because you actually haven't given them the authority to do so.
Absolutely. Yep.
So then my next thing, I was thinking about my husband. My husband went from being a clinical pharmacist with his team to then leading, guiding, and managing multiple pharmacists. He was actually a resident there, got hired, and 2 years later promoted into being the boss. They call him Soup, which I think is really uncomfortable because he's their supervisor. And then when somebody was interviewing, they asked some of the coworkers, like, how do you feel having your resident become your boss? And they're like, well, clearly we have a great program for him to be able to do that so quickly. I will say, and I'm sure you've seen it, Dana, for my husband, it was actually a really awkward transition because these were his friends that he now is trying to manage. And he's got expectations. And I really feel that something beautiful that his company did for him was they actually put him through a leadership course of how to have hard conversations, of what does a true leader look like, what's his leadership style, what are the gaps in his leadership, and just kind of giving him the guideposts of how to be a successful leader, which I think we do really well when we coach and guide office managers that are new office managers of how to successfully navigate that. Because really, you put them in a position of authority, but don't teach them how to have uncomfortable conversations or how to hold people accountable or how to lead versus dictate. You're going to set this person up for massive failure. So what suggestions would you give to, say, a team member who might be listening who has been promoted that might feel that isolation from team? They were a coworker and now they're a boss. And how do you really navigate that in a successful way?
I would say, one, it is understanding that it is an uncomfortable zone for team members. And 2, I would, like you said, just challenge them to have those hard conversations, to talk to these team members, and really, in instances where these conversations have to happen, listen to what they have to say too, be empathetic, and just be careful of how conversations land, right? So we want people to also know all the positive things too. So I think hard conversations always go better when leaders reach out and give positive encouragement on a regular basis, so that when they have to have these conversations, they're much easier because the team member already knows how much we appreciate them.
It's a really good point, Dana. So instead of it being like you only hear from me when you've done something bad, it's that we're consistently reaching out, giving those words of affirmation, praising them on the good things that they do, and then being able to, I say, correct with kindness. And realize, I would also say a tip for those newly promoted people, it's going to be an awkward journey for you. You are going to have some people that you were possibly even friends with before, where you'd go get drinks after work or go get manicures or pedicures or whatever it is, that maybe that is going to shift. I know for me, I've had some people that we were close with, and then I have to have uncomfortable conversations with them. And sometimes that does change the dynamics of our friendship. But at the same time, realizing it is ultimately for the greater good. And this is a position that you did aspire to, that you wanted to become, and really leading for the right reasons. I don't think you have to lose your friends when you're in leadership. I think that you can still maintain those friendships, but just make sure you've got lines. It will make it uncomfortable. You will have to give them feedback that maybe they don't want to hear. And I think that that's just a transition. So also giving yourself grace that it is uncomfortable, that it is awkward. And if utilizing a coach helps you, I know I've got some people that are going through this that are my personal clients that I have calls with, that they're like, I'm so thankful to have you because you understand, you can give me guidance, you can give me perspective, and letting me know that I'm not weird, I'm not on my own island, that other people experience this as well. But I really think having a support system around you as you move into that new position with those leadership skills, with those uncomfortable conversations, with how do you, I mean, like, Dana, it'd be super awkward. Like, let's just put it in perspective. If you all of a sudden became my boss and you started having accountability check-ins with me and helping me see how to make the podcast better, right? You might feel a little intimidated, a little scared, like, ooh, that's not how this was before. And really just giving that grace would be my suggestion on that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I agree. I think it is understanding that it is uncomfortable and conversations have to be had. And like you said, just being empathetic and kind when having them.
For sure. So I think throughout this, guys, you really have heard quite a few different ways of, number one, I love, Dana, what you said of setting those clear expectations, getting scrappy, figuring it out, utilizing the resources, laying that out, then being able to give them the tools for leadership as well. And then giving that grace period, I would say, of it's going to be a shift and it's going to be a change. And then also pointing out how great it can be to promote within. I really think it's important to do that. But also I would say, like, my flip side to this coin is, let's also not promote within just because of seniority. What are your thoughts about that, Dana? Because I hear so many people, they've had someone with them for a long time. So they just say, well, because they've been here so long, they're automatically our office manager. Any thoughts on that? Because I've got strong opinions on that. I think you sometimes are a little more ginger than I am on that. Any thoughts on that, Dana?
I actually think our opinions will align on this. And I truly, truly feel like a promotion, whether we are hiring from outside or we are promoting within, should be merit-based. I think you get the best results when we do that. And the person that's there the longest isn't always the right person for a new position.
And I think rather than promoting that person and setting them up for failure, just as Britt, our other consultant, says, choose your hard. Is it harder to promote them when they don't have the skill set and truly setting them up for failure? Or is it harder to have that conversation with them and hire somebody who ultimately is going to grow your practice where you need it to go? For me, as much as I don't love that conversation to tell someone they don't have the skill set yet, I would much rather do that than promote somebody who doesn't have the merit just due to seniority, to not offend egos and set my whole team and my whole practice up for a disaster. Like, to me, that just is not fair to that person you're promoting because they don't have the backing. And I see it often in practices. I see where we've promoted somebody and at the end of it, they really are not the right candidate. And I watch those practices struggle. Things don't get implemented. Because at the end of the day, your team is a direct reflection of your leader. So I am very choosy and I am okay to hurt egos with love, like not doing it out of brash or rudeness, but I am okay to maybe offend an ego a little bit because I know they'll be okay for the betterment of our company. And I personally feel I have a note on my computer at the office that says, do your job, Be a CEO and look out for your team and do your job. Have those hard conversations and make those hard decisions. But gosh, the offices that don't, I feel like it's just a disaster for the practice, for the dentist, and for the office manager, all mixed into one. And they have the title, but they don't have the merits and therefore can't really drive the practice. So Dana, you're right. You and I both do align on that. So just don't do it. Have the hard conversation and hire somebody who really does have the merits that can do the job better than anybody else.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, guys. There we go. Dana, solid tips today on how to successfully promote within. If you guys have more questions, reach out. This is what we love to do, is to customize this specifically to your practice to help you make those decisions and navigate those decisions with ease and confidence in your practice. So reach out if that's something you're looking for. We can help you. hello@thedentalateam.com. And Dana, thanks for just loving our clients, always delivering so much and just being somebody I really value on our team and being on the podcast today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. All right, guys. As always, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Dental A Team podcast. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.